Hello, friends and listeners, party people. Welcome back to another episode of Party XP. I'm your host, Lakan, and joining me is Jeff. Say hi, Jeff.
Hi, Jeff.
How you doing, man? It's been a while since we actually got a chance to talk like this and just hang out.
It's hot.
Yeah.
So hot. It's so humid. It's like debilitating. It stinks.
It's not fun to be outside. My dad's a madman. Like, he's like doing yard work right now, and I'm just like,
right.
Just go, chill, just relax. It's way too hot for this bullshit. I went for a bike ride after I got home from work this morning. And, you know, it's not too bad because it's like 7 a.m. The sun's not fully up yet. You know what I mean? Like, or it's up, but like it hasn't gotten too much.
Right.
And then like, I want to say like 45 minutes in, like when the sun was actually like up, and I'm like, you know, it's actually like hitting me. And then, you know, I've been going for a little while, and like 45 minutes is not even that long. But I was just like, oh God, I need to get home. You know what I mean? And like, luckily I was only like a mile out, so I just rode back. But I was like, I'm just gonna go ahead and like, you know, lie down in my bathtub. It's just too much right now.
Yeah, no, it is not good. I went to like Home Depot, and I'm hot. Like I'm done. Like I can't imagine even working in the heat, let alone like just going out. It's insane, dude.
Yeah, I think it's gonna hit like 101 today. I think real feel, and I just feel I feel miserable working indoors. You know what I mean? Like, and going outside for a couple, you know, for like an hour and some change. I just feel bad for the people who actually have to work outside. On the drive home, I saw the parkway people, like, you know, like wrapping up all their gear and, you know, picking up their traffic cones again from the lanes they closed off at night. And I'm just like, oh God, you had to be outside. Even if it was out at night, it was still like 85 or some shit and humid as all hell. So it's like they had to be fucking in it. So I was just like, oh God, okay, well, luckily I guess I get to be inside at work and just for the most part stay out of it. But it has not been nice to be out the last couple of days.
Nope, not at all.
Yeah. The last couple of days, I've been gaming a lot the last couple of days. I don't know about you, like outside of just the stuff that we've been doing for the podcast. Because I guess we'll go right into our topic for today's episode. I want to have more of like a relaxed conversation episode here for this one. Just to, you know, again, Jeff and I haven't had a chance to actually just straight up talk and catch up for a little bit. But the Steam Summer Sale just like wrapped up, I think today or yesterday, I think technically. The 50th. Yeah. So the Steam Summer Sale just wrapped up. And I was initially kind of like, you know, nothing really that I'm like going crazy for, like super piqued my interest. And then one of my coworkers brought up that the Yakuza series was like having a sale. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Like I've never really played the Yakuza series. I've kind of like watched a couple, like not playthroughs, but like, you know, I've tuned in and out of a couple streams. And I was like, yeah, this looks fun. It's just like, it seems like these games are really long. So I was like, maybe they're not for me. And then my coworker was like, most of these games are like, especially the earlier ones, they're like 11 hours a pop. And I'm like, oh, that's a lot more manageable. So like, and I went on Steam and I looked up how much they costed. And like Yakuza 1 through 5 or 6 were like $6 or $7. So I was like, that's a steal. Even if I don't play it right now, that's a steal, right? And you know, the Steam Summer Sale, love it. I love Steam. Right. The fact that they have these major discounts on stuff. So I was like, I'll just pick them up. Fuck it. You know what I mean? And I picked up those. And then, you know, like, just one, especially like over the weekend, you know, because I'm up at 3 a.m. Everyone else is knocked out. I'm not really talking to anybody, and I'm just like scrolling, and you know, which is dangerous, right? Like I don't know if you've ever gotten to that point where you're just like, you just see the sales, you're like, I can pick up so much shit for so cheap. You know what I mean?
When you know you're gonna buy something, you're on that Steam client and you're like, something's getting bought today.
And again, I was trying to hold off, and then just because my friend told me that on like Friday into Saturday, and I was like, I'm probably gonna pick those up. Yeah, fuck it, I'll pick it up because I get like 7 games for the price of like one full game, like one full title, like 60 something bucks, $67 or something at the end of the day. And I was like, the floodgate is opened. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So I don't know about you, but have you picked up anything else over the Steam Summer Sale?
I grabbed a few things just because, you know, the games that I play don't have an end for the most part. So like I've been super grinding Street Fighter and Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. So I picked up the Capcom Fighting Collection. I wanted to play Red Earth. You'll see that hopefully once I finish Kirby on the YouTube channel. That's kind of what I wanted to play next, was Red Earth on there. I also picked up Amanda the Adventurer because I never owned it. I watched the playthroughs, but I wanted to play it myself before the second one comes out.
Word.
And then I picked up a game for like 80 cents. It's called Raptor Call of the Shadows. I think I might have mentioned this
Raptor Call
on a
of
previous
Shadows.
episode.
Let me look this up right now.
I used to have a freeware version of this game on like a compilation of it was just a bunch of shareware games, and I loved it. It's kind of like a Gradius,
Oh, just okay, cool,
yeah, shoot 'em up type game, and I love this game, and it made me so happy to hear all the like sound effects again and all that. So I picked it up. It was like I said, it was like 80 cents. So I was like, screw it, I'm buying it.
Yeah,
and I'm gonna play it, and
yeah.
it's just like I remember it.
Yeah, classic games like that has been older games. That's another. I picked up another set of older games as well too. Actually, I don't know if I needed to do this. I don't know if I'm just bad with money or I fall to temptation, but I ended up buying I ended up buying the Prince of Persia series because they had a sale, like a bundle of those as well too. Like the reboot, the PS2 reboot. So Sands of Time, Two Thrones, Warrior Within. The Prince of Persia that I already bought. I had a PS3. The one I did with John. That
Yes.
reboot in was it 2009 2011 when that one came out. And then the Forgotten Sands, which is I think the return to that Prince of Persia PS2 series, but like on PS3 and Xbox 360 at the time. Yeah, $9. So I was like, yeah, that's fine. I can grab that again. Even though I already have physical copies of it and emulate it and all this other stuff. But I also picked up Alien Isolation. I don't know if you know about that one.
Okay.
So that one's like a horror game more than like if you heard like Alien like Colonial, was this like Space Marine or whatever it's called, or
Yeah. I recall.
Yeah, so that was like more of like a tack shooter kind of thing, but Alien Isolation is more of like a hide and seek horror game essentially. I mean, that's kind of what Alien is, right? It's a horror. It's a horror movie. It's very heavily inspired by it. So, from my understanding, you're relatively helpless in it. I know that game came out a while ago, like maybe 2014, 2017, something like that. But it's still kind of regarded as like a really, really well made horror game. So I was like, I've been wanting to play that for a long, long time. It just kind of fell under the radar for me, I guess, when I was younger. But I've been seeing it more and more as like, oh, like this is one of the peaks of horror games. You should probably play this. And I was like, I'll get around to it. And it was on sale. So,
one day.
Yeah, and it was on sale. So I was at that point I was like, okay, yeah, fuck it. I'm gonna pick it up then.
And you're working third shift, so like your bedtime is daytime, so it's not as spooky.
It's super bright out.
Right, as if I were to play it at bedtime and it's pitch black, and I'm like,
you're over here being, spooky baby time.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I was willing to. I wanted to pick it up, so I was like, absolutely, I'm gonna try that one. And then I grabbed. Oh, you remember Hi-Fi Rush? That game that blew up like from Microsoft's like first party team that they dissolved, like
for whatever reason.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I picked it up because it was on sale too, and I was like, I heard this game's fantastic. So this seems a little more like pocketable, right? It's a smaller pick up put down title, kind of level based. So I was like, okay, this actually seems pretty good for me. And then Penny's Big Breakaway. I don't know if you know about this one.
I've heard of it. I've heard the name, but I haven't.
From my understanding, it's developed by part of a team that made one of the Sonic games, like one of the small teams that like made like Sonic Mania, I think it is.
Okay.
So like a team within a team kind of thing. You know what I mean? Essentially, they had made something good. That again, Sega and Sonic team were not able to fucking make, right? That small fan team that eventually became Sonic Mania. They broke off, or I guess they broke off from after they got essentially acquired, right, by Sega, from my understanding.
Right.
They broke off and they were trying to make a 3D Sonic game, and from my understanding, the Sonic team wanted to go in a different direction, and then we ended up with Sonic, what was it, Frontiers?
Yeah, whatever. Well, that's the latest one.
Sonic Frontiers, the 3D open zone Sonic, whatever they called it, right? Penny's Big Breakaway is again like the other team that broke away from after being acquired by Sonic Team, and they made their own 3D platformer. it just looked really cool. The platforming looks really dope. There's like yo-yo mechanic in here to like grapple onto stuff. Reminded me a little bit of Chameleon Twist. I don't know if you remember that game from the N64 era.
No, you know what it reminds me of?
Hmm?
It reminds me of that fan-made Yo Noid game because she uses a yo-yo.
Yeah, yeah, I remember that. Okay, yeah, but I mean, like, it just looks really cool. You know, like and it's pretty popular from my understanding. So I was like, yeah, I'll pick it up. Absolutely, why not? You know, just because it looks like a really cool 3D fun platforming game. You know, and I've kind of been on a kick with those for a little while too. So I decided to pick that one up and hopefully get into that one relatively soon. But right now, I'm currently in the middle of trying to chip away at Yakuza 0. That's the main game that's caught my attention as of late. What's your main game at the moment? I don't. We haven't talked about what we're playing outside of the podcast recently.
I have been playing nothing but like fighting games and Master Duel. I'm trying to put together something where I go for Master in both games at the same time.
Okay.
So that's kind of what I've been working on. But so my old fight stick that I had prior to my latest one, the black Sony, the RAF fight stick.
Yeah, yeah.
I had a Comba Q4, that blue one that I imported from Japan.
Okay.
So I had thought it was dead for years, right? It wouldn't work whenever I would plug it in.
Yeah.
I plugged it into my PC the other day and it magically started working again.
Sick.
So that, like, not unlike Soul Calibur, where like you pick up the sword and I just feel like I hear the music playing and it's like the brave warrior finds his sword once more, ready for the fight. And like that's all I've been doing now between retro and current day fighters. I've just been playing those because like my stick works again.
Was that not working on the consoles before? Was it not working on PC before either?
Anything. It just wasn't working, period. And now all of a sudden it just works again. And I'm like,
did a weird driver update happen or something? You know, like an
it might
automatic
be.
driver download.
I figured it was something internally, just because this thing has been just like curled up for years. So I figured maybe the wires internally had had some issues,
or need to be rewired or resoldered or something.
Yeah, but
it works. So
it works, right? Exactly. So I'm thrilled about it. So I'm happy that it's working again. But now I just have two giant fight sticks, which is good because if I try to play when the baby's home, at least I have one that I can be like, here, smack on this for a while.
Yeah. Oh, really? Does he sit with you and like when you're playing fighting games?
He'll try, but then he wants to come up and play with what I'm using.
Ah, okay.
So it only
cute.
manages to hold him back for a few. I get a few more minutes out of what I'm doing, but
that's cute.
It's been a blast, and it makes me happy that we're getting a lot of these like remastered collections, which I think is something else you wanted to talk about.
Oh yeah,
but
absolutely. Yeah.
At the end of the day, a lot of the older fighting games are kind of stuck on the platform, especially for me. Like I love Capcom versus SNK 2. It's still stuck on the 7th generation of systems. I think it is the PlayStation 2, the original Xbox, and the GameCube.
Yeah.
So the only way to play this game is on Fightcade via emulation, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of where Marvel 2 is. It's a very difficult game to emulate, especially all of those Capcom fighters are super difficult because they all run on what's called the Naomi board, which is basically just like a modified Dreamcast, but it's been challenging up until fairly recently to emulate that for whatever reason. It's just been hard for the guys to figure out how to emulate those games. So a lot of them were kind of stuck in this weird purgatory where you couldn't play them, or you had to play the console ports, but nobody wants to play the console ports. You want to play the arcade port, right?
Yeah.
But you couldn't because it was hard to emulate. So it's just like this wide circle of stuff, and Capcom never released any of updates. There's no way to play these games, so we're all just kind of stuck trying to play these games that we love, and we're all fractured because some people have like the PS2 version, some people have the Dreamcast version, some people have the Xbox version, right? It's just been a whole rigmarole, to put it lightly. And so kind of why I'm happy that emulation has kind of become more prevalent to preserve these games.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we probably dig down a little bit more that whole emulation conversation actually then.
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
When did you start emulating stuff? Because I think I'm relatively late in comparison to...
You must be.
Yeah?
Because I've been doing it since like high school.
Okay, yeah, because I was not really emulating a whole lot of stuff when I was younger. I'm not counting bootlegs, right? That's a little different, because that you're technically you just have a cracked copy or again a copy of a disc that kind of beats the like, like me having the copies from the Philippines, right? Those
Right,
are
right, right.
those are just copies of the actual game, including the protection. I guess technically it's on the disc, is just tricking the system, but it's still technically running on official hardware and the game itself, right? So I didn't really get into emulation. I want to say until like at least like maybe early college.
Okay.
I don't know about you. You said high school, right? So what were you
Yeah, no,
playing
I
at the
was in like
time?
high school playing games on PC because it's like, well, I don't have to set up all the consoles and you know, it was just easier to just get the games because that was before everybody kind of all the Nintendo basically before Nintendo picked up that this was a thing, and so it was easier to just get the game, play it on the computer versus having to set up the Super Nintendo or
Mm-hmm.
set up the Nintendo 64 and get all plug everything in, make sure it works, and then as time progressed and you have like HD televisions, right? I don't. Luckily, my TV in my bedroom growing up had the red, yellow, white port, so I could still plug in the old consoles. But now all they have are HDMI ports, right?
Okay, yeah, yeah. Because I was on the other end where I liked plugging the old consoles, right? Like
Okay.
because I had them, they were stowed away, but stowed away in a way that like I can always grab them, and I always kept like I used to collect like CRTs, like not a collect, but well, we had like all the CRTs that we were getting ready to throw out once we started buying flat screens and LCD TVs and stuff
Right.
like that, right? I started collecting them in my room and in the attic right above my room because I was like a stickler for like playing like N64 or GameCube on CRTs because of like the response time, just like this nostalgic feeling. Like I liked the fact that I was setting it up. Like like people like records, right? Because it's like the whole process of
Hmm.
it. Bust on the record player. You grab the record itself, the vinyl itself out of the sleeve. You know what I mean? It's a whole thing, right? It's the same thing for me when I would prefer to play on the physical hardware at the time. And I guess I only really started getting into emulation in college because I had a laptop finally,
Hmm.
and I was able to bring a couple of games, with me to college, or like if I was going to a friend's house, have kind of have some things on me with me on the go, or if I was taking a weekend trip, and I'm sitting in like a random ass hotel room, like on a gig, right? I'd have something to distract me for a couple hours. But even then, I feel like my emulation was still technically not even fully emulation because a lot of times I was playing like ports still. You know what I mean? Like old games that would get re-released onto Steam. So like I don't know if that counts as emulation or not. Like the majority of my games were still like I guess technically ports at the time. So again, I don't know where the line specifically on PC breaks that port versus emulation thing. Do you have an idea on that?
Not really. I'm not the person to ask about that because, like I said, I'm just a proponent of it because it keeps games around. But I mean, if it did you pay money for it?
Some of them, yeah.
Okay, then it's not really emulation. It's just a port at that point.
Okay. What about like playing? Perfect example. I started playing Street Fighter on Xbox 360. Is that still emulation or is that a port? Like I was playing Street Fighter 2 or something.
No, that's a port. Yeah,
It's a port. Okay.
it was HD remix, right? That's a port.
Okay.
That's a remaster and a port. Yeah. When we're talking emulation, we're talking like having a program that pretends to be a console and you're downloading files or yeah, you're downloading files. You're not
Or
playing the game.
ripping the file yourself
Right,
nowadays. Which
exactly.
is a little
That's
a
to
little
me what
easier now to
emulation
do.
is.
Okay, so that's what the separation is. Okay, cool. I wasn't doing it myself, but I had friends who knew how to like rip files from like PS1 games like in college. You know what I mean? Like
Okay.
because they
Yeah.
had beefy PCs, and I wasn't super like tech literate at the time. Like I was still kind of
Hmm.
like just getting into PC gaming and really like actually learning how to use a computer as like a tool. You know what I mean? Like for the most part, I used to play the games, but then I started learning more and more down the line when I got older. Now I'm kind of like fully in. Like it really started taking off for me. I want to say like around 2020, 2019, like around the time I started like video game hunting, because I realized certain games that I wanted were extremely cost prohibitive for me to pick up. You know what I mean? Like to pick up like an authentic copy of it. So I was like, well, I just want to play the game, and this game's not available anywhere else anyway. And the company that created that game is no longer getting money from me, even if I buy it. So to me, I was like, I'd rather just, pick this up somewhere online or see if I have a friend who could rip a copy for me, and then I'll play it that way.
Exactly. That's kind of been the other thing too, where like since the pandemic, gaming prices, third party, secondhand gaming prices have exploded from a collector standpoint.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to play, so I'm just going to look it up right now. If I wanted to play Marvel vs. Capcom 2 on PS2, right? Let's just say theoretically.
I have that copy. I have it on
me too.
Let's see what it says on here on pricing now. Let's see what it
me
says.
Me too. DK Oldies, which isn't really the greatest bar, but it's a place that's easily accessible to buy this game, is currently selling it for $215.
Yikes. Okay. Yeah, and I'm looking
why
at
the hell would
Game
I buy?
It says 148 complete in box right now.
Right, exactly.
Ugh.
But like you're looking at all of these, you're paying at least $100 for this, and it's not even the best version of the game to play. It's probably just the most accessible.
Mm-hmm.
If I want to play the Dreamcast version, $180. This one, fully complete in box, $430.
Yeah.
$90 on DK Oldies, probably just for the game itself. Right? So let's see another game that I love, right? Capcom versus SNK 2.
Mm-hmm.
$110 on PS2.
Ugh. Right? Okay, yeah.
Ridiculous. I mean, so that's kind of the things that I'm talking about when it comes to emulation and the things that you're mentioning, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where the game is priced out for most normal people who, if they want to play the game.
Yeah, like hardcore enthusiasts are still going to drop the money for it if they're really that dedicated to it. But, if we tell like Buffa no, Buffa's a bad example because he actually collects stuff. John, John is not really a collector of anything, right? Of video games, right? If we tell John, hey, that game you really loved on PS1, I found a copy of it. He'd be like, oh, cool. It's $300. Absolutely not. You know what I mean? He's going to be out of that conversation. He's like, that conversation's over for him.
Right. And then you're telling me too, like I have to, especially like for fighting games, like if you want to try to build a community, it's like, well, the barrier to entry just to get the game you want to play is $180, right?
Yeah.
And then you have to find a system to play it on if you want to play it on a system, right?
Yes.
Then you have to find people to play with locally because you can't play them online anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can, find the file online, rip it, put it in an emulator that has net play and play it that way for completely free.
Yeah.
I mean, it kind of makes the most sense. In an ideal world, like we're going to get with the Marvel vs. Capcom collection in a few months here, I can just buy it, boot the game up, and play online legitimately. But because of things like licensing and interest, quite frankly, games like Capcom versus SNK 2 are probably not going to get remade. A game like Tatsunoko versus Capcom, which is an even more obscure game that was only made for the Wii, is probably only going to live there just because it's going to be a licensing nightmare to get all those Tatsunoko characters back, licensed again, right?
Yeah.
And you talk about other games like that game you purchased, like Misadventures of Tronbon, right? The $400 PS1 game. You talk about Earthbound. Earthbound sells for a ton of money still, I think, even though it's been ported.
It's crazy high.
Even though it's been ported multiple times. Maybe not that much, but still.
Well, when a game gets ported, usually there tends to be a price drop in terms of the physical market.
Right.
But even then, it's still like, now that it's been ported, even then, like technically when they're ported, or like perfect example of the Capcom games, right? Like, let me move it a little bit, I guess, a little broader with a console, right? So like Nintendo Switch Online is a perfect example of like emulation, not done right, but done in a better way, right? Because again, we said we will pay for these games if they're available, right? It's a I'm sure everyone's heard this quote multiple times before, from Lord Gaben. Piracy is a distribution problem, right? I'm paraphrasing here, right? But if you make the game cost prohibitive or extremely difficult to actually get your hands on, then yes, the easiest option for most people are going to be to pirate it. Nintendo, for all their bullshittery that they've been doing recently, right? Like we've heard them really clamping down on emulation. With what is it, Yuzu, and they shut down Vim's Lair, I think, recently, or at least made Vim's Lair remove all of their Nintendo files. Um, they are providing emulation within their own service, right? Like a bunch of these classic NES games. They've expanded all the way from like NES all the way up to what now, Game Boy Advance
and N64 and all that, right?
N64, yeah. So like they're and there's still missteps, right? I remember the N64 speedrunner community of Ocarina of Time were noticing like the emulation was not running good for like the fog wasn't loading in and all like others very specific things that people are looking for these games, right? Because they are being emulated, right? They're not fully running the software truly natively, right? And that being said, Nintendo has done updates, so on and so forth for the actual emulators themselves. They are at least allowing a method to emulate some of these classic titles on modern hardware, and I'm cool with that. Like again, like if the companies are willing to put these games out and make them available again for the players, that's a good thing, right? These games don't get lost to time. There's so many obscure like beat 'em ups that were on the SNES collection, right? On NSO and Sega that I would never would have played, that I got to like actually experience for the first time because they're actually having it on there. Again, like that's kind of the middle ground between like emulation and porting, right? But it's there and it's available for people to play, which is great. And I think technically Xbox does this too, and PS5 does this now as well, right? With the cloud streaming stuff,
Game Pass and all that.
Yeah. So I think a lot of companies are starting to like wise up to it a little bit more now, of like not letting their massive libraries kind of just fade into obscurity as time goes on, right? Because the fan bases and the customer base have been making it a case of like, hey, we want these games. Been a lot more vocal about it, especially in the last couple of years, because Xbox 360 is shutting down soon. I don't know when.
I think by the end of July, it's gone.
Oh, there we go. So it's really close then. Vita shut down, 3DS shut down, Wii and Wii U support is gone, right? And what happens when all those systems go down, right? Immediately cracks start going through, right? People start hacking and modding consoles, bring up essentially their own black market of pirated games. And which is I'm officially down like the rabbit hole with it, right? I have a modded 2DS and new 2DS XL, so I can get all these old DS games and 3DS games that would have been lost forever, basically. My Steam Deck has been like my best friend in terms of this too, right? Because it's just like I'm running everything up to like technically up to 360 on my Steam Deck. So I've really gotten more into it again within the last couple of years. We've talked about it a little bit before. I think it was during
Wario Land 4.
Yeah, Wario Land 4. There we go. That's what it was. Even more so, like I've actually like officially like invested into gear and like modded other gear that I've had before too, to rip games, to rip the games from physical copies that I own.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Recently, right? Like with my Wii U, and I also recently bought this little device called the GB Operator that rips Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color, Game Boy cartridges, so I can have the files myself, and make a copy. Have a backup somewhere on my computer.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's kind of the long-standing rule of emulation, right? It's like, oh, as long as you own the game, it's okay, right?
Yeah, and I'm kind of in that camp for the most part. I don't know about you. I don't know where you stand on it, because I know I've had the conversation with my coworkers before, where some of them are like more like, I don't care, I'm just gonna download whatever I want. Me, I've always kind of been in this like, just maybe because I've only recently gotten into it. Maybe my viewpoint's a little bit different on it, but for me, it's like I kind of sit in that weird gray area of like, if I own the game physically, it is within my right to do whatever I want to said game.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's where I sit for the most part. I don't know what you do. What do you do about it?
I mean, that's cool.
Like that, or
yeah,
no?
I mean, I'm fine with that. I'm also fine with, hey, I can't find this game anymore, but I want to play it. How do I play it? otherwise, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
For me, it's a lot of making sure that games, no matter how obscure, no matter how bad, don't get lost, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Because
fair.
that's still something that somebody put their time and effort into, right? To make sure that
Mm-hmm.
things didn't go missing. And to make
Yeah.
sure things didn't go missing is important because people still worked on this. This was still somebody's livelihood. Maybe this is someone's passion project, right? Maybe I keep thinking
Mm-hmm.
about when I kept thinking about games, no matter how bad or obscure, right? I played the Ronald McDonald game on Super Nintendo, if you remember.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah, I remember that.
I'm just thinking about like that could be somebody's passion project, and it can't go missing. It's never going to get re-released. It's going to be stuck on Super
Yeah.
Nintendo forever, right? But it
Mm-hmm.
still deserves to be, cherished and kept around, right? So the only way to
Yeah.
do that is through emulation. But how many people own a copy of this game? Probably not all that many, right?
Yeah.
So how do you keep that game around? You have to emulate it. Now there's a fine line between Nintendo cracking down on Switch emulation and cracking down on
Yeah, that's a little weird
right.
for me, right? When people emulate modern
Right. Well, that's
consoles.
again, it's just like you said, the Gaben quote, it's just a distribution issue. And a lot of those folks are people from, different countries where, especially like Brazil, it's because of the way that
Mm-hmm.
their laws are set up, it is impossible to purchase things in Brazil because they are just taxed
Okay.
to shit. So
Mm-hmm.
usually
So like importing stuff is very, very
right,
difficult
right.
for them,
So like
basically.
that's why for a lot of people piracy is such a big thing. Even in like Eastern countries, even in like China,
Mm-hmm.
Japan, Korea, like piracy is a big deal because it's just like Vietnam, a lot of those other countries. You lived it. You lived this thing
Yeah.
in the
That's,
Philippines
yeah,
where
yeah,
you had cracked systems and cracked games because it's just people don't have the means to buy it, right? So like
yeah, yeah,
for
yeah.
every one of those situations, like I get it. I also understand why Nintendo's doing it to protect their stuff, but don't come after me for
Their
trying to
property,
download
yeah.
Ronald McDonald in Wonderland, right? Nintendo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's stupid.
Well, well, like I was like that's kind of like one of my lines, I guess, in the sand, right? Where I personally don't emulate games that I like that I can easily
Right.
acquire right now, right? Um, like the Tears of the Kingdom was a big deal, right? For what was that? Was that last year
Yeah.
technically? Yeah, last year. So when Yuzu got shut down, it was on the grounds that they were distributing Tears of the Kingdom like a week before the
Mm-hmm.
game actually came out, along with them, with them obviously distributing their emulator. That's a big no-no because that's in my mind that is, or my understanding, that is very clearly
Yeah.
stealing from you might as well have gone to a Target or a GameStop, like gone behind the counter, grabbed a game, then walked
Right.
out of it. That's something that is still acquirable. If you have the means to acquire these games, you should. They're available to you. Yeah, I understand. Like not everyone's got money to buy a game. Like very very regular. Like very privileged in a. I'm in a very privileged position where I have the disposable income
Mm-hmm.
to do so. I can go out and buy a game if I really wanted to, but you're like that is actively stealing at that point. That's the way I see it in terms of like the way the modern games are going out now. If I own I own a copy of Mario Odyssey, right? I've been trying my best to try to get that to run on an emulator, mostly because I'm just stupid. I'm still
Right.
trying to learn how to do it. But that is my game. I paid for it. I should be able to whatever I want to do with it because I did pay for it, and it is my copy. If I want to dump the ROM, I should be within my rights to do so.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. But it is a little funny that like this is on a portable system. But I just want to play it on my Steam Deck or whatever, right?
Yeah, because that's kind of like what it is for me. It's like this is my hub, right? It's like it's kind of the whole PC argument of like not wanting multiple
Right. Right. Right.
launchers, right? And like right, because you're
Yeah.
you're a big Blizzard guy. Like especially when especially if you delved into Diablo right at the time,
or World of Warcraft, or
I don't know if you World of Warcraft. I don't know if you played Overwatch, but if you play all these games, like okay, cool. Well, these are most of my games anyway. I'm launching most of my shit through the Blizzard launcher, right? And then for me, like being mostly a Steam guy, I would get so fucking annoyed when I'd have to like launch Uplay or EA Origin, like to play like an EA game, like an Apex Legends or something. It was really annoying. So for me, I just like want everything in one spot, like on Steam. Same thing with my emulators. I used to go from doing it on my phone, right, and then changing devices or whatever. And now the Steam Deck is out. I've had it for however long now at this point. Like this has become like, oh, this is like my emulator machine, like because it's so capable. And again, like even though I technically do own a Switch, right, which is it's in itself, you right, you pointed it out, it's a portable console. I just want it on my Steam Deck just because again, I have everything already on there.
And I just want to play these games on Steam Deck, right? And for me, like a lot of that stuff too is like you mentioned, it's just like convenience, because I don't want to have the Ubisoft launcher. I don't want remember EA's launcher that they had? Like I don't want these things. And I get it. You want all your stuff kind of in one compact place, which is why like playing everything on PC was so it piqued my interest, right? To be able to play not just the PC games, but to play NES, Super Nintendo. And again, I didn't have a Sega Genesis. I didn't have a, Saturn and all that stuff. So to play those games was also interesting. And it was all on my PC. I could play with like an Xbox controller, which I felt was more comfortable than playing with the original hardware. Even though, like, don't get it twisted, like I love playing games on original hardware, but just like if I just want to fire up Super Mario 64 at some point, or maybe another game that's not so easily accessible, I just want to play it for like a few hours. It's just easier to do it on there. That's kind of been my thing. But for me, a lot of it comes down to just like preservation and keeping games around, because up until recently, it wasn't a big focus of these gaming companies to keep their older titles around. And then, like I said, too, there are games that are just inevitably, for whatever reason, just going to be stuck on the system that they're on, right? So you have to do something to keep those around. But I'm not going to sit here and weep for Nintendo. I understand why they do what they do and why these other companies do what they do when it comes to shutting down piracy and all of that. But
like I understand it, but then if you're gonna shut it down, then make your games available.
Don't just always make them $60.
Yeah, and like I understand the whole. I understand it now, right? Versus me saying earlier, like I would bust out the console and play it, like physically. Like I get that. You'd rather emulate it on PC. Yeah, I'm in the same boat now. Yeah, are there times I want to actually play the console? Yeah. Yes, and I'll go through the whole rigmarole, the whole routine. It's fine, right? But even then, I made it simpler, right? I bought the Retron HD2 or whatever it's called, like the little emulator console. So I'm still using the cartridges, right? But they have an HDMI output, which is again a big deal now. But I still use the cartridges. I put them in. I still get that kind of like nostalgic feeling, like actually popping the cartridge in, turning the game on, and then playing on like a dedicated TV. And that's still technically emulation, right? It's hardware emulation, right? Not software at that point, but it's still emulation. We're not like, and we've. And you and I have had these regular conversations now about these like handheld emulator consoles, right? Like and I know we've been waiting for one that really piques your interest, right?
Right. So I love the Anbernic line of consoles. I've been kind of waiting for them to kind of get a little bit cheaper, just because I know it will. So like I'm just waiting for it to get a little cheaper so I can pick one up and play it, at night, especially because I can definitely, of course I can bring my Switch into the bedroom and like, play at night. But like, number one, it's bright, it's huge, it's bright. It's probably louder than I should have with a child trying to sleep in, 20 feet away from me or whatever it is, 8 feet away.
Yeah.
So I don't want to be too loud. And this thing, it's smaller, it's compact. I can play a lot of the games I want to play. I can play the older Pokemon games. I can play, handheld games. I can play stuff that I missed. I can play stuff that I own, but I would just want to play on a smaller screen, right? Whenever I feel like it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's appealing to me, is just the ability to have everything at my fingertips very easily.
I remember I set up my old phone as a
Right.
emulator machine, basically, right? Because I also bought the PlayStation Backbone controller, which is great because it just plugs in Type C to the bottom. It just works, clips onto the phone and everything, right? All my emulators basically recognize it, good to go. And I remember they were asking me like, why would I do that? What? Because I was playing like what was I playing? I was playing a DS game, and which was actually was mostly used the controller, right? And they're saying, wait, you have a 2DS, you have a 2DS XL, right? And I was like, yeah. And like, why don't you just play it on that? And I was like, well, I mean, yeah, but then I have, I'm carrying around another console on me that I don't already have on me at all times, right? But my phone, like I always have my phone on me, so I had to carry a little controller in my little bag, and I'm good to go. And then obviously, like I have the entire giant SD card that I have installed on there with my entire collection, so I can play my PSP games, my DS games, my 3DS games, PS1, even some PS2 games I'm running on my phone, right? Versus playing on my modded 2DS XL, where I'm stuck for the most part playing ports of like Nintendo and up,
Right.
Games, right? And DS and 3DS games themselves, which those are basically being played on native hardware at that point, right? Like again, the H shop, which is I think now is the main shop where people are acquiring stuff on now that the 3DS system is down. But yeah, like again, like my phone, I have that on me at all times instead of me carrying an extra piece of hardware, like a full on handheld console. The phone's on, phone's available, and I just carry a controller on me to make the experience not as shitty.
It's probably more comfortable too. On top of that,
yeah, absolutely. I actually get like proper thumbsticks and everything, right? But yeah, there was like those handhelds have been like a big thing in this space for the last couple of years, right? They've been blowing. You go on Amazon, you look up emulator, and you find thousands of them now, right? All from China, SD cards that are filled with like thousands of games, right? Which again, that I feel like that brings a lot more attention and heat to it, but I'd rather they not sell. Like I'd rather just acquire the files
exactly.
myself.
Because I don't know what else is on there.
Yeah, and like the Analog Pocket, right, which is a really cool console, right? Because initially it was just meant to do hardware emulation, right, of like Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color games, and all that, so on and so forth. And then people found a way to mod it, right? They unlocked the extra cores on it to start running other console emulation and stuff. So have you pulled the trigger on one of those yet or not yet?
But I know I'm gonna end up owning one probably by the end of the year.
I get you, yeah. Because I've been on the boat trying to get you to buy just a Steam Deck at the
man.
point.
Look, like,
is it just a bit much?
I don't go anywhere. So why am I going to buy a Steam Deck if I don't go anywhere? Especially like I want to get an Xbox Series console so I can play college football, but like because it's not on PC for whatever reason. So like I want to get that. So why am I going to buy a Steam Deck?
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't go anywhere. I sit here and can play whatever I want here. It's challenging to plug. Does it have a USB port, like a USB-A port?
It's a USB-C, and then you can plug a hub.
Well, then I gotta get a hub for it if I want to plug my fight stick into it to play on a little screen when I can just play on my big screen.
That's fair. Okay. Yeah, but for me, I think it's just more the versatility, right? It's the fact that I can use this as like a PC myself, or use it like as a handheld console, or like move it from my desk setup and plug it into my TV downstairs if I really wanted to. It kind of is just the Switch, but better. Right, in many ways, but again, like it's also become like my powerhouse for like emulation and stuff. Like I've gotten this thing to get up to like Xbox 360 games so far. And it's just like it's pushing it, but it's working. Like I've got some PS3 stuff running on it as well too. it's just a kind of like, for me in my use case, it kind of just becomes that emulation powerhouse that I wanted to, and of course I'm still running like simple SNES games and Game Boy Color games on it if I really wanted to. But yeah, like those little mini handheld consoles, I want one just because some of them look really cool. Like I think it's like the Retroid Pocket 3 has like this really cool SNES looking one. And then, of course, the Anbernic. Yeah, they have
the Anbernic H has like the atomic purple. Like I have that Game Boy Color, so like it made a lot of sense for me to pick that one up too.
I just have to stop myself from just buying just because it looks cool. Because I'm just like, I already have a phone set up to do emulators. My Steam Deck's already there. But it's like, it's like availability and pocketability, right? Too. It's like you can kind of throw it into a pocket, and if you happen to go out and do some errands or whatever, or go on your walk with your son, right? And you sit on a park bench for a little bit and just you can pop it out for a little bit, right? Why not?
And not have to just play phone games when I'm out, right?
Have you ripped any of your own games yourself for your emulation?
No, the closest thing I've done is like I have all my PS1 games here, so I'll use the PS1 emulator. I'll put the games in my CD drive and I'll play the games on the emulator on my PC. Yeah.
Oh, it reads it. Oh shit! Okay, cool. So is it just like a program that just reads the discs and like decrypts them?
PCS
so you can read them on a
X2
regular PC thing.
Does it? Just reads it.
Yeah. Okay,
it's pretty cool.
Shit. Okay, cool.
So that's the most that I've done with a lot of ripping my own stuff is like putting my own games into the PC and then playing them off of there because like I said, they're CDs basically. So like my thing will still read it. The only thing I don't have, which maybe one day I'll get, is a Blu-ray drive so I can play some Blu-ray games on here. Yeah. But that's a nice to have kind of thing.
Yeah, because right now I'm in the process of modding or hacking my Wii and my Wii U because there was like one or two hacks previously that were. I mean, for some reason all of Nintendo stuff is very easy to hack.
Right.
Like the DS's, the 2D, like the 3DS,
they're also the company that has like the most issues with availability and stuff like that, and they have the most passionate fan base too, probably. So
so I feel like that's kind of like just desserts for Nintendo in some respects, right? That their shit gets hacked so easily. But I've like found some new stuff recently where you can hack the consoles, and when you inject the new software into them, they actually have like software you can rip the files from the disc themselves straight onto a memory. Because they have SD card slots, or like at least modified SD card slots, right, for the Wii and the Wii U.
The Wii modding scene is so cool. Like I don't know how much you've seen. I for whatever reason I have just been on like this Mario Kart kick too, where I watch people play like modded Mario Kart stages on YouTube. It's so sick, like what people can do with the Wii. And I mean, that's something that we've known about for a while. Like the Wii was easy to break, and you got like the homebrew channel, and you could download games for it, and a whole bunch of cool stuff like that. But it's just like, it's so cool to see that people are so passionate about this stuff, and it wouldn't be possible without this sort of emulation sort of community, right? And I know sometimes it's frowned upon, but I think there's a lot of people here that want to just enjoy these games and don't want to have to jump through so many hurdles to play these games, especially for me, like playing fighting games and playing older fighting games that you fell in love with people from across the world that still love these games. It's all from like a place of passion. So for me, I don't see a lot of the stuff like those other sites that you mentioned from Nintendo, like the Switch hackers and things like that, a lot of who are doing it for either profit or doing it to circumvent paying for things. So I might be a little naive in thinking that a lot of this is all for love and all for preservation and all for enjoying art, but that's what it is for me, at least. It's being able to enjoy these games that I've always loved in the best way possible, right? Because say what you will about these older consoles, like a brick shithouse PC running these emulators can run it better than the original consoles can.
Yes.
And I can plug in a modern fight stick. I don't have to get a PS2 fight stick or an Xbox One, an original Xbox fight stick.
or find a million converters to try to get it to work on
that may or may
modern
not
hardware.
have things like input lag or just not work at all, right? I can plug in my modern hardware to my modern computer and run these games and play them with somebody across the world, right? And that's kind of like the cool thing for me, and that's what I've really enjoyed about kind of this new era of emulation, is being able to share these games that I love with other people, right? And I do appreciate companies now kind of coming to terms with it. Like, I'm playing Kirby on the Switch, NSO Online, like the NSO.
Yeah, and we could play online
right,
together
exactly.
if we wanted.
So,
GoldenEye being on Xbox now and Switch and having online multiplayer, that's massive.
GoldenEye. I know.
Well, neither am I.
Right, it sucks.
It's a bad game.
We can get into that.
It was a big game at the time. I get it. I understand the impact, but going back to play now is very rough. But if you want that nostalgia hit, you can. That's the availability is there, and having the modern niceties is a big deal of having like widescreen support. Obviously online multiplayer is a big deal, right? Having those things now is great. It's amazing.
Right. So here's another thing. Like, I'm just looking at my list of stuff here. So like, I wanted to play Typing of the Dead, but like, good luck finding Typing of the Dead.
I think it's on Steam.
No, it's not. I looked.
It's on Steam.
No, the remake is, and like, it's not as good as the original one. So I wanted to play the original one, but luckily there's a whole site of abandonware games that I can get it from and play it. And now I'm able to play this niche title that like I wanted to play. I saw online. I thought it was cool, and now I can play it. I don't have to spend $1 billion. I don't have to go find it on Dreamcast and then buy a Dreamcast keyboard and play the game on Dreamcast.
Yeah, I've seen that thing going for like $100 still.
I can just play the game the way that I want to play it. So, and I think that's kind of the thing. Basically, my gist is like, you do it for passion. You do it because you want to actually enjoy these games. You're not doing it for profit. That's basically where I'm at with emulation. I'm a proponent of it. I want people to keep emulating and keep backing up games, because in a world where so many of the things we own are on these digital marketplaces
and we don't actually own them half
you
the
own
time
a license to play this game, and they get shut down willy-nilly. It's nice to be able to guarantee that something's still going to stick around. And I know we can't save everything, unfortunately, but save as much as we can, even if it is like I know a lot of the big things that people are trying to do in preparation for the 360 shop shutting down are like a lot of the early things from like 2005, like 20-year-old items that people are still going through like their histories to download, things like trailers and demos, things that maybe never came out, or things that behave differently when they came out than maybe like an early release was, or things like that. Just like, there's 20 years of history on Xbox Live on 360. Like, you have people trying to,
and we're gonna lose it if no one does anything about it.
And even things like a trailer, like, as somebody in that creative realm, like, somebody still worked on that trailer. Somebody still put time and effort into that. So to lose that forever, even if it's a game that's been out for 20 years, it still sucks, because somebody still put time into that. And maybe the game, like I said, maybe the game looks different in that trailer than it ended up turning into. Maybe we're seeing like the intro of like I don't know, like Gears of War 2, let's say. They had like a special behind the scenes look at Gears of War 2 on the 360 live platform, right? And that goes away. Maybe there's something interesting in there, or who knows? Like, you know what I mean? It's just like, I'm just all for trying to preserve as much of this history as possible. And that's what emulation gives us the ability to do. In a face of a world where things are getting way more expensive to go play PS1 games and, Super Nintendo games, things like that are stuck on those platforms and are being, like we talked about, they're hundreds and hundreds of and thousands, maybe in some cases, of dollars, or in some cases there's like 1 or 2 copies of this game that are made. Think like a game like Primal Rage 2 that never came out, but we have the arcade board and we're able to emulate it. Like, that's the coolest shit to me.
And like to touch upon like people kind of like doing their job, not their job, but you know what I mean. People banding together to try to archive all of this like media now, right? I'm gonna touch on a bit of a. You remember Gerard,
Yeah.
the completionist, before his fall from grace, where he bought he downloaded everything from the DS, 3DS, and the Wii
Right.
U shop, and he offered it up to the video game what is it, like
Preservation.
the Video Game
Yeah.
Preservation Foundation. Yeah, like that is that
That was cool.
that was cool.
The other
Really,
stuff he did
not
wasn't cool.
the rest. Yeah, the afterward stuff is not great. Allegedly, I'm not trying to get sued.
Right.
Uh, but that in itself, yeah, like, that's exactly what we're like. We're talking about like the preservation of these games. That is a big deal, right? Because everyone's got like a game that like they could. It's probably like in the back of their mind. Maybe they haven't played it in like 20, 30 years now, right? But it left like a massive, like really like a big impact on them, right? And imagine like perfect example for me. Solar Jetman just came out on Nintendo Switch Online, right? I don't know anyone else
Right.
who knows about this game, but this game was like one of those. I had it. I had the cartridge on the NES, and I loved this game. It was insanely difficult for me as a kid because there's a lot of physics in the game, but it's fucking dope. And now it's out on NSO. That's fantastic. They're preserving this game that was a sequel to a game that came out technically, on an old console that nobody even fucking cares about nowadays. Like having that out now again. Nintendo, thank you for actually doing that. But before that, guess what? I had to either have my copy or try to find one in a fucking
Right.
a bargain bin somewhere
What's the
in a
full
retro
name of this game
shop.
again?
Like I'm Solar Jetman.
Let's see. Let's just see. Theoretically. Oh, $15. Okay. $10. Okay. But
Okay,
still,
yeah.
you have to find this game.
I have to find it. I've gone to so many shops
Right.
and I have not found another copy. Because like even if I already have a copy, I'm curious to see like, does anyone even have this game? I've been shopping for hunting for the last 5-6 years now, and I have not seen it once. Because it's a relatively obscure NES game. Like at least like if we're gonna compare it to obviously the mainline Nintendo titles, right? Like I'm not like people are gonna think those they're not gonna no, like some people are gonna think of like, oh, this is a really cool game that I should just go ahead and just, spread the love. Like no, it's just more often than not because it didn't have like the big marketable character arts, right? It's just gonna fucking fall to the wayside. And luckily for me, again, like I have a copy of it, so if I really wanted to play it, I could. And then again, Nintendo, again, like I acknowledge the good things that they do. Do. They bring out these like relatively obscure games and put it onto their service.
That's another thing that's really cool about like a lot of these new services, like Nintendo service. So like Sin and Punishment was like a rail shooter for the Nintendo 64. Never came out in the United States. Those games like from the 64 DD, Doshin the Giant, the Paint Studio games, right?
Mm-hmm.
They never came out in the United States. There's only two ways to play them. It's either if Nintendo puts them out, like in the case of Sin and Punishment, they put it on NSO. You can play it right now. If you have the premium, whatever, NSO premium, you can play it. Or you find somebody that has it online, right? You find an emulator and you find a ROM of this game. And like for me, a game like Doshin the Giant, I know it's available and I know like I think I can buy it, right? Like I think I can play it. Yeah, it's on GameCube. I think there were like some ports, but like this game, this has always been like the game that like I want to play. I don't think it's particularly great. I think it's like a fine game, but we never got it and I just want to play it, right? I don't know why I haven't. It's been like 20 years. I don't know why I haven't just played it, but like that's something that emulation offers me. That's something that it gives me the ability to do is play these games that never came to America that I want to play. And that's pretty cool.
And we're not telling people to go out and do crime, but
I'm telling you,
go out and do crime.
Exactly. We're not telling you to go do this, but
we're just
if you like it, go do it. But like, don't download things that you can buy.
Yeah, if you have the income and you have the money to spare and it's acquirable legally, please go out and do so. again, like that's kind of the line that I've drawn for myself. Is if it's cost prohibitive, it's not available, you can't get it. Because again, like more often than not, you can probably still find these on eBay. For the most part, these games are still acquirable. Do so, but if it comes to that point where it gets to basically, it hurts the consumer to try to just play a game, right? To experience a piece of media.
Yeah,
Do a little crime,
a little bit,
just a little bit of crime. A little crime never hurt nobody. Yeah, because again, too, right? These games are the developers are no longer profiting off these games, right? This is all secondhand at this point.
Right. The other thing too, like with a lot of that stuff, like those collections, if you buy the collection, they'll see hopefully that you still want these games and you want more of them. So if you don't buy the collections, unfortunately, they'll be like every time Capcom puts out Darkstalkers, oh, they didn't sell enough. Another 30 years without Darkstalkers. Go to hell.
And here's the thing too, right? Like again, like and I'm sure this has been referenced a million times too in like other podcasts about video game podcasts about emulation and stuff like that, or I've at least touched upon the topic. Like how many times have you bought a game? You know what I mean? That you also emulate. Like I said earlier, right? Like the Prince of Persia series. I own that game series. I bought it again on Steam. I also emulated it on my Steam Deck. Like how many times? Like how many copies of Super Mario do you own? Like right, and I still emulate it on my phone. Like it's like the people who are most likely to who are likely to pirate and like emulate these games are also usually the people who have spent the most money on these games. That's if I remember that was a study done like in like the 2010s, like in the mid 2010s, like the people who tend to pirate in general, like movies, right, TV shows, all that stuff, are the people who already tend to be paying the most already. They're the ones who pay for the streaming services, who actually go see the movies themselves, who buy the DVDs, the Blu-rays. In our case, the video games, we pay for the video games, like and excluding the fact that we don't own games anymore, right? That's a thing. Ignoring that part,
right?
Like if I bought a cartridge, for Nintendo Switch, for the most part, I basically own that because they kind of put everything onto the damn cartridge. But for like a lot of the games that are on discs, you don't actually have the entire game on the disc, but you have paid for it. You know what I mean? But yeah, the people who have spent the most are also the people who tend to be pirating as well because they can't get a thing that they actually want. If the whatever powers be have the power to distribute something, people will pay for it.
Do you know how many times I've downloaded Donkey Kong Country 1, 2, and 3? And I own those games. I bought those games like as soon as I could.
At least 7.
At least. But I play them all the time, and I love those games forever. But I have done like you said, like I've downloaded all those games. Super Mario World, of course.
Yeah, I bought games on like Super Mario 3. I have the cartridge, right? I bought it on the Wii. And then I bought it on the Wii U Virtual Console. And then then I bought the re-release on the Game Boy Advance. Yeah, I paid for the game 5 times.
I think I can download it and play it on my phone one time.
Yeah, Nintendo's gotten enough of my money, and clearly they know that people still want this game. So please keep putting it out. Stop taking games away from us. One last thing, I guess. Okay. Then, what is like the big game that you emulate? Like, what is like either the first one you did or like the one that you like? I will like you like it's the reason why you got into it, or like a game that you were like, I can't get this, I'm gonna emulate it, and it's been like it was like a genuine like a satisfying thing for you to actually do it.
Oh, so like anything with mods. So like a lot of like the old wrestling games on N64 like would have mods. So I played a lot of that. Obviously, like Capcom versus SNK 2, Street Fighter Alpha 3, Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, which up until fairly recently you couldn't play on a console. It was an arcade only release. Like Super Turbo, you could only play on consoles or on an arcade board.
On arcade.
So like,
didn't know that.
If I wanted to play the most up to date and newest version of Street Fighter 2, that's the only way to play it. Right. So for me, a lot of it comes from like the competitive side of things, but also like the creative side too, with like the mods and all of that. I
Yeah.
would say I would say like that Ronald McDonald game is like one of the first games that like I never owned, but I got to experience because of emulation. A lot of like the Sega Genesis games I never owned, but I got to experience because of that. Same thing with like Dreamcast, like figuring out how to make Dreamcast emulation work, and then like creating Dreamcast games was a big breakthrough for me because I felt like I had like an eye patch and a pirate hat on. I felt like I was a super cool pirate. But again, like
Fully sailing the seven
it's
seas.
accessibility because I don't want to pay $200 for Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Sorry,
Yeah.
just not going to do it.
Yeah. I think for me was the experience of playing modded Mario 64. Like the widescreen, like 60 FPS, like, with a modern controller. I was like, holy shit! Like it wasn't even me doing it. I was at my friend's place, and he was very into like emulation. He's a speedrunner.
Right. Okay.
So like he was very into this. I was like, okay, cool. It was like that and Melee, like
Like Slippy and Dolphin and all that.
Slippy, exactly. Like it was those two experiences that I felt like 60 FPS, widescreen support, right? For Melee, it was like having the online gameplay, right? That was a big deal. I was like, oh, this is like way more than I thought it was just gonna be. You know what I mean? I thought it was like, oh, I just get to play an old game from my childhood. No, this is like a modernized experience. Quality of life things, right? That's what the modding scene is around this emulation stuff is. If this is my experience now from playing this game, this is my baseline now, right? This is how I want to experience these games now.
Exactly. That's the big thing too. Like especially with like the multiplayer games, is playing these games the way they're meant to be played, like the way they deserve to be played because of how much joy they brought us, right? So being able to play like I don't know, like the old Call of Duties again, right? Being able to play Star Wars Battlefront, being able to play what else, like SOCOM. Like people were still playing SOCOM until the day they shut down the PS2 servers, and I'm sure like a week later they figured out how to bring them back up and play SOCOM again, right? So things like that. But now you can play them, like you said, in 60 FPS with an HD patch, and I can easily connect to people all across the planet. Same thing with like Mario Kart Wii. Like people are still playing Mario Kart Wii online, and you can do that thanks to emulation, right?
Yeah, you touched on Mario Kart twice now in our conversation. I feel like now I have to go down the rabbit hole with you.
Yeah,
like now
it is really cool.
Now I'm genuinely curious about like how, like, because you brought it up twice. I'm like, oh, this actually sounds really cool. I should like look into.
Would it make
now.
you laugh too if I can count on my hands the number of times I played Mario Kart Wii? Because I'm pretty sure it's fewer than 5.
Really, you missed out on that one? I thought Mario Kart on the Wii was actually pretty good. I like
anything after Double Dash, I just didn't play. Here's the guy I watch. Hang on.
Well, Double Dash is peak first off.
Right. Well, of course.
Yeah.
That's the guy I watch. Roy
sent it on to me. Oh, see it. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll watch that later. Okay, yeah. So yeah, that was my big deal of like having those experiences. Like, okay, now I'm fully in, and then the floodgates is open for me, looking to re-experience some like older games with some modern quality of life updates. That's a big deal.
Yeah, you're falling apart, so I'll let you go here.
Yeah, this is a fun conversation. Again, a little bit more of a relaxed episode from Jeff and I here. Something that I've been meaning to actually talk about with Jeff as well too, because we've had these discussions offline, and I've been getting more and more into it. Basically, like over the last couple of years, and even now, fully like my Steam Deck is a full on emulation machine at this point. So, this was fun. I really enjoyed this conversation with you, Jeff. So listeners, if you guys enjoyed this one, please give us a like, leave us a review, share us with a friend. We'd really appreciate it. Share us on social media. We really appreciate the support from you guys, and we'll see you guys in the next episode. Take care.
ROMs for games to play on my PC. See ya.
How to crime.